The name of the project is called Alta Forma, and the album is entitled Spatium Tempus, meaning space and time. I've always listened to music with vocals, but as a composer, I never had the urge to create songs with lyrics. I've been releasing instrumental music for just over 20 years as I'm recording this, but it's finally time for me to offer something a little bit different from what I've done previously. I think that the fundamental reason why I've avoided songs with lyrics is simply that I didn't have the main instrument, the voice, or perhaps I never wanted to develop it. But in recent years, I began to experiment with certain melody lines where some lyrics would appear out of nowhere within my instrumental music. I thought that perhaps I should push this a little bit further and see what I can come up with. I then started to slowly compose chord progressions and write lyrics with melody lines. I gradually started to put together a collection of songs. At the same time, I was building up my confidence in the idea of sharing those songs with other musicians. The next important step that would make or break a project like this would be to find a vocalist interested to sing those songs. From the beginning, I knew that I wanted drummer extraordinaire Todd Sucherman to perform on this project. Todd played on the Bohemian Odyssey album that was released in 2019, and I was really excited to work with him again. When I told Todd what the project was about and that I was looking for a singer, he then immediately recommended his old friend J.K. Harrison. J.K. had recently produced and co-written the music on Last Flight Home, Todd's solo album, and he seemed interested to embark on this project, not only as a vocalist, but also to provide a lot of musical ideas and lyrical ideas too.
So I got this phone call from Todd Sucherman, an old friend of mine, and he asked me if I'd be interested in lending vocals and you know, whatever other creative input I had to a kind of an art rock, progressive rock project with his friend Antoine Fafard. And I was familiar with the record that they had already made together that was all instrumental, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, you know, I highly rate Todd as a musician and Antoine, even though we never met. But Antoine started sending me material, which really blew my mind, and I thought, wow, what a fun challenge to do something, you know, out of the wheelhouse I've been in for the last couple of decades.
So it was a real productive collaboration between us. JK and I worked on a good amount of music together. We exchanged a lot of audio files over time, and finally we came up with the 9 songs that are now on the album.
I had the spectacular experience of working with Antoine on 2018's Bohemian Odyssey record. And in 2019, I did my own record, Last Flight Home, with J.K. Harrison, and that record wouldn't have ever even been an inkling of existence or coming to fruition without J.K. So I had these beautiful experiences with both these friends of mine, and when Antoine reached out to me looking for a collaborator, I thought, well, let me put him in contact with J.K. I just had a beautiful experience there. You never know. Let's see what happens. And out of that, this music started to take shape, and it was very exciting to see them come together and collaborate on what would be Alta Forma.
So after the songs were composed and J.K. had added his vocals to them, the next stage was to send the demos to Todd, who worked from them, listened to the programmed drums, and created his own parts to the music. In line with my own way of creating music, we recorded the drums at the very end, which is maybe a process a little bit different from others. But this process is really exciting for me when a world-class drummer like Todd adds his own magic to the music.
JR is our first session live in Human Beings since, I would say, early March of 2020. And let's make music here for what we believe is going to be the Alta Forma project. We think that's the name of that. And
whatever it's called, I like it.
Yeah, we like it. AF something, Antoine Fafard's Alta Forma. Antoine Fafard's Alta Forma rock trio, available for weddings, bar mitzvahs, and parties. I think this music is definitely a progressive rock thing with sometimes tinges of jazz fusion, but it's definitely, I wanted to mold the drum parts very much into parts. And I sort of did that a bit on Borromean Odyssey, but with this record, it was really more important to have there be certain structures. Antoine's also a really great drum programmer among his other talents, so it was cool to listen to what his initial idea was and then do my own thing with it, put my own flavor, change some of the fills, change some of the grooves, but I could see sort of a pretty well-crafted, painted final picture, and it was fun for me to go in and go, what would I like to hear here? What would serve the music the best? What would be fun to play, and what would work in the overall picture of not only the composition, but as a collection of compositions. So this was a thrilling thing to see come together and come to fruition, and I'm really proud of the work that we all did here.
I think what was great was the combination of the three of us. You really get this interesting hybrid of there's jazz, there's prog, there's art rock, there's melody, and I think it's a really nice record from start to finish, and I think we really achieved our goal of creating something fresh in a world where musicality is waning.
Musically, I try to find my own way in writing songs with vocals. I took a little bit of time. There are a lot of elements that remain from the way I compose instrumental music. In fact, what I've composed in the last 10 years or so is very much chord progression oriented, so there's no change there, as opposed to riff oriented. So rhythm is something that's always carefully worked out in my music. And sometimes initial ideas come from rhythm-based patterns. But I always put a lot of effort in trying to come up with original chord progressions, hopefully made of unusual voicings. So the chords that I use, I suppose, could be called jazz chords, in the sense that they are more than just triads. Chords with extensions, basically, and the way I look at music generally, I'm looking at it from modal perspectives. I'm thinking about scales, and it's important to add element of surprise through perhaps unexpected key changes. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. Although I composed most of the music on the album, there are a couple songs where JK and I either co-arranged or co-composed together. For instance, the music on Invisible Time was composed by JK. I then added my own flavor to it musically and wrote the lyrics. Impossible Hero is another piece that was co-composed between us two.
There was this clear figure, the ultimate hero, a role model, a guide to follow, growing without a beacon, on a raft in the sea, left alone with your own devices. Everyone has their own flaws, so hard.
We really achieved what we'd set out to do with this record, which was to make something challenging and yet listenable and melodic, and thoughtful lyrics, and as you can tell from the title, there's a definite sort of theme to the music and the lyric ideas, and I'm really pleased with the results.
So lyrics are obviously something new to me. I had written some short stories in some of my previous projects, and perhaps you've read some of them, but I had never written proper lyrics to songs. So I decided to jump in and take the risk of perhaps make a complete fool of myself, but just go for it. And during the process of building those songs, JK made some adjustments so that the choice of words just flow well with his singing. I think that overall I wrote about very much universal subjects. As the title of the album suggests, the concept of time is used quite a lot. So the songs Comfort Zone and Time to Dive are about the concept of taking chances, getting out of your comfort zone, which really much applied to me when I tackled this project. I think that when you only deal with things that you're good at, you might miss out on the experience of trying new things. So this is what those two songs are pretty much about. It's about taking a risk, which is in itself a worthy experience. Apocalyptus and Here Now, these are two songs about mankind's self-destruction. A theme that I had explored in my short stories previously. Climbing to Infinity was directly inspired by climbers who tackled the biggest mountains of the world, and about the fact that a lot perished over the years trying to get to the top. I was surprised to learn that the body of a climber who died on Mount Everest was never removed or buried and became a landmark for other climbers. But apart from that specific story, I think the concept of ascension is a universal theme, and the journey, again, towards the goal is the reward in any endeavor. And it's about finding what your passions are and your goals, and just go for it.
Every new album from Antoine comes with new challenges. In this case, we have 3 new challenges. The first one would be that for the very first time in Antoine's career, we have vocals. The second one is, for the first time, we're using emulated amplifiers rather than analog real ones. And the third one is that for the first time, we're actually releasing this record also on vinyl. So it needs a proper mastering for that too. Blending vocals on Antoine's music has been quite difficult because of his compositions being so complex and rather full. I had to find proper space for the vocals to express themselves. Working on this, I found out that I had trouble with the way he was recording guitars, and especially about his tones. I had to ask him to reduce some stuff, and I got the DI signal for most of it. That way I was able to use emulated amplifiers and change the tone. Sometimes he had to, re-record to better use the new tone. This way I was able to find the proper space for each of these guitars during every single part of every song. So whenever I had less space because there was some vocals on it, I was able to change the tone even so slightly so that in the spectrum there was enough space for the vocals to be up front. This is the first time that I work on a vinyl mastering. It wasn't easy because with the CD mastering you know exactly what it'll sound like because you can just listen to it. But with a vinyl you don't really know exactly how it will sound when it will be played, because the way they'll cut it change the way it sounds. So I had to take extra care of that mastering for this record, especially because the signature sound that I have started, that I composed for Antoine on every album that he has, is that he has a lot of full low frequencies and quite crisp high frequencies, and exactly those two are an issue with vinyl. So I had to change quite a bit the way I usually mix Antoine music, at least for the vinyl recording. I think we did a pretty good job with this record. I hope you enjoy it just as much as we enjoyed making it.
Antoine and JK have such different talents that you never know if something's going to work at all. And the fact that it did, I find very satisfying, because I've had such deep musical experiences that are totally different from each other with both of these gentlemen.
I was so happy that Todd called me, and so glad to connect with Antoine, and I hope we do another record together actually, because I think we've just scratched the surface of what the three of us can accomplish.
So there it is. I hope that you'll enjoy this album. It's been manufactured in a limited number of CDs and also LPs. As always, thank you very much for supporting my music, and please check out Spatium Tempus by Alta Forma.
No sé
sure that was the one.